Hello everybody, my name is Talan, and I do want to thank you for clicking on this video. This is going to be a bit different from what I usually do. The closest I've done to like any actual videos was a previous Pokemon Nuzlocke, but typically I stream and I upload from Twitch directly to YouTube. This time, however, there's going to be a straight to YouTube, minimal editing outside of little time jumps and what have you. But I want to welcome you all to a Talent Talk. This is going to be a nonsensical bouncing ideas off of the computer screen in front of me, just talking about the various ideas and thoughts that I had on various situations and scenarios. It's going to be, as I said, minimal editing, no script, unscripted. But I do want to preface this by saying what I'm going to say is my opinion. It is not the gospel truth. It is not anything that you should take with more than a grain of salt. I am not a licensed professional. On some of these talent talks, I imagine I'll talk about various different scenarios that a licensed professional should be talking about. As I said, these are just my opinions and my thoughts on different matters. But with all that out of the way, if you are interested, please stick around. Put me on in the background if you wish. If you wish to watch the video, I will have Black Ops on this. All the talent talks may be something different. It could be Black Ops, League of Legends, just something to kind of fill the void if you're laying in bed or what have you and need something to watch. So today I want to talk about a particular topic, just kind of get all this fluff and nonsense out of my head. And that is the military, specifically the United States Army. Now, for those of you who don't know, some of you may know, some of you may not. I don't openly talk about it, but I have mentioned it several times on streams. I was in the United States Army for a little under 7 years. I believe, if I remember correctly, it's about 6 years, 10 months. But time is an illusion when you're in the military.
I've been holed up in the mansion since yesterday.
And I've been out of the military for a little over a year. I want to say I officially got out of the military August of last year, so about almost a year and a quarter, give or take. And in that time, I've had to kind of shift how I think outside the military. Like I said, this kind of video is going to be like freeform, bouncing around, just giving my various thoughts and such. I can tell you without a hint of doubt in my mind that the military was one of the best and one of the absolute worst ideas I've ever had.
You're done here, mate.
I joined the military when I was 18. Not quite out of high school, but close enough that I can say it's directly out of high school. I was probably out of high school for like maybe 4 or 5 months, 6 max. I was in the military for, as I said, about a little under 7 years. So I was in there for a good chunk of my young adult life. I have missed a lot of moments back home. I have learned a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of places. As I said, it was one of the best and one of the worst ideas I have ever had. And what do I mean by that? Well, I was basically a child when I joined. And I subscribe to the belief that everybody should, if they're able to, if they have the inkling to, you should at the very least have a serve for one term in the military, right? So about 3 years. Because in the military, and this might sound like one of those military commercials they play in high school or on TV or what have you, but in the military, you get to see amazing places, meet new people, learn new skills. You get to be some bombastic badass. And for the most part, that's true, but it's kind of it's the same kind of truth as calling Godzilla a reptile. He is, but it's a bit of an understatement, don't you think? let me just kind of like lay out what in general happens when you sign up for the military. And as I said before, this is not to urge anybody to join the military. This is not to talk anybody out of the military. This is to give you my insight on my time in the military. And to be honest, condensing almost 7 years down to, I'm going to ballpark a 30-minute to an hour long video is going to be kind of difficult. We might have a future Talon talk on this. But in general, once you sign on, you pass whatever physical requirement they need of you, which it's very lackluster. If you can walk, you know, more than a mile without getting winded, typically they will accept you. There's a thing called a waiver. If you fall short in some category that the U.S. military is looking for, but if they still really need people, they will waiver you and make it easier for you to join. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not going to get into. Let's just say it's not as hard to join the military as you might think. In fact, I would argue it's harder to become a police officer than it is to join the military. But in general, once you complete the ASVAB, which is the educational test that you take before joining any military branch, which it helps the military realize, okay, what can this man do? What do we have him do? And it helps decide what jobs you are qualified for, based off your mechanical knowledge, your mathematical skills, your reading comprehension, so on and so forth. Once you pass your ASVAB, once you pass whatever physical test they have for you, which is basically like a PE test, you know, we've all had them in high school. Run a couple miles, push-ups, sit-ups, what have you, within time limit. You are carted off to MEPS, which is where you are physically examined. You go through, you sign all the paperwork, they make sure you're healthy. But in my opinion, they just send you to MEPS to both cross their T's and dot their I's as far as contracts go, and to make sure you are okay with following whatever orders you are given. I mean, they quite literally have you strip naked and do a duck walk. I'm not going to explain what that is. If you know, you know. You can look it up on Google if you would. Max ammo. Because that's all the military is. You being told to do something that you fundamentally as a person either disagree with or think is probably the stupidest thing you've ever heard, and still being told, sucks to suck, get it done. Once you're done with MEPS, you are carted off to wherever they need you, wherever your basic training is. Basic training is an extended, mine was about 3 months, I believe, 2.5, 3 months. Keep in mind, this is all from seven years ago, so it's been a while. But mine was about 3 months of intense physical training, and this is kind of what makes or breaks a lot of people when it comes to the military. Because during those 3 months, you have very little rights. It's typically you're in a class or a platoon of about 30 to 45 people, which is overseen by drill sergeants. If you've seen anything about the military, you know what a drill sergeant is. Very angry people, round brown hats, getting in your face, yelling at you, make you feel awful. It's kind of par for the course for the military in general, just feeling awful. But oh, we'll get to there. Don't worry. But for 3 months, you are told when to sleep, when to eat. You are told when to do anything. And if you mess up, it's not just your ass on the line, it's your entire platoon. And let me tell you right now, some people could not give a hell if they're in the military or not. They'll continue to be who they are, be who they've always been, and just ruin life for everybody else. During this 3 months, you are shaved clean. You're completely bald unless you're a female, unless you're a woman. You are given strict instructions constantly, and you kind of have to earn back your rights. Over 3 months, for my platoon, we had different phases. I believe it was red, white, and blue phase. I want to say that because, haha, America. But I want to say it was like red, white, and blue phase. And if you meet requirements via over a timeline, then you can proceed to the next phase and get better treatment, I suppose. It's more that the drill sergeants stop jumping down your throat at every opportunity, but maybe it's different for every platoon. So basically, think of it this way: you start as level 1 goon, and you gotta try and work your way up to. I mean, well, you're still a goon, but now you get like a fancy little uniform. You get treated slightly better by your superiors, so on and so forth. Oh, gotta get out of here. Like I said, this is live recorded, so it's gonna be very off the wall. When I tell you I was questioning my life choices within about a month and a half of being there, I really was. Because you were taught in the military very quickly that it doesn't matter what you want. It matters what your superiors want. It matters getting the mission done. Whatever the mission may be. And in basic training, if you've never gone camping, you'll go camping. If you've never run 3, 4, 5 miles within an hour and a half at a very slow or fast pace, you will. You do a lot of things in basic training you never thought you would do. But like I said before, and what I've mentioned previously on other streams and whenever I talk to people, much like everything else in life, people ruin things. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, remember how I mentioned previously, if you mess up in the basic, it's not necessarily just you that pays for it, it's your whole platoon. You win together, you lose together, kind of thing. And people take that for granted a lot of the time. You'll see people making alcohol out of hand sanitizer in the bathroom. You'll see people hooking up with platoon mates during basic. You can't be doing that. You're not allowed to drink, smoke, no sexual relations, nothing like that in basic training. And if you do, you get written up. And let me tell you right now, paperwork is probably the bane of your existence in the military. But I feel like I've gotten off track a little bit. Once I was done with basic training, which, as I said, it's a struggle. It's a physical struggle. It's a mental struggle. The whole thing is they want to break you down. They want to remold you into somebody who, by their words, is worthy of being in the military. But that's neither here nor there. Once you finish it, you can kind of realize that basic training is kind of just it for the military. More or less what you do in basic is what you're going to be doing throughout your entire contract or contracts. Once you're done with basic training, you get your orders to go to whatever unit you need to go to next for your AIT training. Whereas basic training is military training for, physical, mental readiness and such. AIT, Advanced Individual Training, is what you need to learn for your job, right? So for me, for example, I was in artillery. I was the guy driving those funny little trucks around at lunch and do the funny little things, and then boom, suddenly an entire grid square on the map is gone. So whenever you finish your training in basic, you'll be carted off to AIT. Now, here's the thing. Your basic training is more often than not going to be the place you grew up in. So if you live in California and you join the military, obviously, again, depends what branch you're at, but typically you're not going to be in California. You'll be carted off to some other state where there's a good chance you've never been to before. I, for one, never left my state outside of, like, family road trips and such for short little periods of time. So it was definitely an experience going from where I grew up all the way over to Oklahoma for basic training. And if you live in Oklahoma, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The weather there is awful. But in any case, we're talking about AIT. Once you finish basic, you're caught off to AIT, where it could be an entirely different state from your basic training. I was lucky. My AIT was actually just down the road from basic training. They literally give us our bags and say march. And we marched down the road, and it really sucked. You learn really quickly what it's like to be a pack mule in the U.S. Army. Let me tell you right now, you grow real strong real fast.
Locked and loaded.
But in any case, once you get to AIT, it's a bit more relaxed. You're still a trainee. You're a soldier on paper, right? But people will tell you, oh, you're not a real soldier until you've done XYZ. I don't know about all that. I mean, I feel by their definition, I'm not a real soldier because, I mean, technically I've deployed, but we're not talking about that right now. People will try and gatekeep you on everything for the military. Just don't listen to them. If you join the military, do your best. And to be honest, that's all you really can do. That's all you can really expect to do. But in any case, your AIT can last months. Bare minimum, I believe for the most part, your AIT will last as long as basic training, if not longer. So for me, my basic training was 3 months. Bare minimum, my AIT would last about 3 months. In fact, I think it did last about 3 months. There's not a whole lot you need to learn for artillery. A lot of it is maintaining your vehicles, the different rounds of munition that you can fire from your vehicles, map reading, etc., etc. It's easier than it sounds, but it's just very time consuming, and you are not learning on your schedule. You need to adapt and overcome very fast if you want to have any hope of succeeding, as awful as that sounds. But in any case, AIT is very relaxed. You're no longer dealing with drill sergeants, for the most part. When I left my AIT, I heard word that they were implementing drill sergeants into AIT classes. So, again, take what I say with a grain of salt. It was very much, I imagine, it's what like going to physical college is like, but a lot more running, a lot more push-ups and sit-ups. You know what? It's like ROTC. If you've ever done ROTC in high school or college, I imagine it's very similar.
Another tango identified. How many kinds of these freaks are there?
Sorry, it's easy to lose my train of thought. I have a bit of ADHD, and sometimes I just kind of trail off when I'm trying to get my thoughts together. But I promise I am still here. I can tell you right now, whereas I hated basic, but I saw it as a necessary evil, quote unquote necessary evil, I loved AIT. You're still held under scrutiny, but you feel like an actual adult, right? You feel like you're being taken seriously. The instructors care about your well-being, obviously to a certain extent. There's only so much they can do if you're not smart and or lack survival instincts. But it felt good going to AIT. Once you're done with your training AIT, you are then shipped out to wherever they need you, wherever your job is in demand. Now, here's the thing. You get to choose your job before you go to MEPS, before you sign your contract, so on and so forth. You get to choose your job based off of your ASVAB score. If you score extremely high, right, you are like one of the smartest kids around. You know what the hell you're talking about. You're very mechanically gifted and educationally gifted. You can basically pick whatever job you want. And by that logic, once you get through AIT and basic, you can somewhat pick whatever place you want to go to. But as I said before, it doesn't necessarily matter what you want. It matters what the military wants and needs. If they tell you you're going to South Korea, you're going to South Korea. It doesn't matter if you wanted to go to California or anything like that, or any other good country. You're going to South Korea. You're going to Germany. You're being deployed wherever they need you. And this is what I think is kind of like the beginning of a downfall for a lot of people in the military. They become disillusioned with the military. They feel lied to. Because at the end of the day, your recruiter just wants to pump numbers. They have a recruiting quota they need to make like every month or so. They just need numbers. And to them, for a lot of people, you are just a number. Now, that being said, I can say with confidence, my recruiter didn't necessarily screw me over. He definitely held a lot of things to himself, held a lot of cards close to his chest. But I can't necessarily fault him for that at the end of the day. Oh, believe me, I did when I was younger. Man, this bullshit. I can't believe what my recruiter did to me, etc., etc., etc. I think the biggest misconception people get, and again, this is all could also be passed along by recruiters. You get to choose your job. You don't get to choose your job. Best case scenario, you get to ask for a job that they may need. You might get to ask for a base where they might need people. Will you go there? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But for the most part, you're kind of just like a little bit of napkin with the wind. You go where the wind takes you. But all this is done. You've spent 6, 7, 8 months in AIT and basic training combined, and you finally get to go to your unit. Well, I hope you enjoy being on the lowest rung of the social ladder. Typically, when you join the military, you are assigned private, E1. That is the lowest of the low. If you're a trainee private, that's the lowest of the low, so on and so forth. And as you go through the military, you have chances to up your rank. Whether it's a time thing, whether it's you pass tests, whether it's you meet ABC requirements, as long as you have no black marks on your record, you can join the upper echelons, let's say. For the early ranks, E1 through 4, as long as you don't mess up, you're kind of just given that rank after a certain amount of time. It's time in service, right? I believe if you start as E1, in about 2 to 3 years max, you'll become E4, a specialist. You are a step away from being an NCO, a non-commissioned officer. So at that point, once you're a specialist in E4, they're going to start looking to you to lead soldiers. They're going to start looking to you to step up and be a leader. I can tell you right now, I hated it. I hated being a specialist. It was awful. It was just really awful. You're expected to be an NCO by the NCOs, but suddenly you have, quote-unquote, more power over your squad mates, platoon mates, what have you. You're expected to be in charge. They don't respect you as a leader, but you're still not an NCO. You're not getting paid much more. It's awful. That's another thing I really want to talk about. The unhealthy expectations that the upper echelons of the military have for their young soldiers. A lot of time you'll find people who make a career out of the military, because it is a career. To an extent. I still think it's a job as a job as a job, but the military is, or can be, a career, let's say. But you'll find a lot of people who treat the military as the be-all, end-all. If you are not in the military, your opinion doesn't matter. If you're not striving constantly, breaking your body, your back, in some cases your mind, to constantly better yourself, or better the military at the cost of yourself, then what are you even doing? You're a disappointment. You don't deserve to be in the military, etc., etc., etc. You'll find a lot of those in the upper echelons, sergeants, first sergeants, officers to a certain extent as well. It's awful. It's really awful. And that's where a lot of people buckle and strain in the military, the unhealthy expectations that are put on them. You could try your best, but let's say, for example, you get hurt during training, right? The military will... They can't tell you not to get treatment, but oh boy, are you a pariah in your unit, especially from the people who take this shit very seriously. You know, maybe I should have scripted out this video, just like put little talking points for myself, but at the same time, this feels good just talking about it. As I said before, the military was most certainly the best and absolute worst experience of my life. Oh yeah, being a social pariah. So I'm sure a lot of people here would be familiar with the term gym bro. The military is a very large cauldron of just random stereotypes and personalities. But I want to say the main ingredient is cringe and gym bro. People who, no matter what, they have to be physically fit constantly. They have to be breaking their body constantly. It's fine to take pride in your work. Do that. Have pride in your work, in your hobby, whatever you do. Don't let it influence how you see other people, however. Some people join the military for benefits. College, helping their family, so on and so on. Some people join because, well, they have to legally, because they did some not nice things and the court says military or jail. And yes, that does exist. I've met a few of those people in my training days and throughout the military. End of the day, we're all just people trying to do our job. It kind of falls under my blanket rule of just don't be a bastard, don't be an asshole. And I can tell you right now, a lot of people in the military, they fail that. Now I feel like I'm just like more bitching than anything, but I promise you there's a point to this, aside from just getting my own feelings out there. I can very comfortably say that the military itself does not care about you as an individual. And let me explain that real fast. When I say that, I mean they care about you to the extent of they want you to be a functioning, fighting person. They want you to be constantly available for missions, constantly jumping when they say jump. It's rough. They do not see you as an individual. They do not see Private Smith. They do not see Sergeant Gloria, so on and so forth. They will lie and say they do not. Because you'll constantly have NCOs, and I like I said, I've been in the military for almost 7 years. So I have been around the bush a couple times. Your leadership may care about you on a fundamental level, but so long as you don't make their job more difficult, so long as you do as you are told, they couldn't care less if you just stop existing between duty hours and non-duty hours. And it's awful. But in either case, I can say for a certainty that I would have stayed in the military beyond my physical problems if it wasn't for the people. The people ruined it for me. People ruin everything, let's be honest. I had a lot of NCOs that would say quite literally to your face, fuck your feelings. It doesn't matter. What matters is you do what I say. I have had NCOs after I've lost some family members say, you know, that doesn't matter. What matters is the mission here and now. I have had lower enlisted privates, specialists, and so on and so forth, say or do stupid things that jeopardize my career as an NCO or as a soldier, and not care. They're much like school. The military has cliques. The military has friendship circles. And if you're not in that circle, it doesn't matter if you're a higher rank or a lower rank, you get nothing. You get nothing and you're happy with it, is kind of the general consensus, yeah. I don't even know why I'm still in this level. I already got the mystic gold for this weapon. Maybe I'll just grab some from the mystery box. And give me a second to sort my thoughts and such.
That'll burn the skin off your bones.
Ooh, he has armor.
I know how to handle myself.
All right. You know, ideally there would be no such thing as cliques in the military, because you know we're all on here. We're all there to do a job, and if you can't do the job, get out of the way so other people can do it, or at the very least don't jeopardize what they can do, right? It's not like that, sadly. It's far from that. If it was that, I'd probably still be in the military.
Of all the virtues, patience.
And a lot of the time, people will excuse their behavior by saying, like, I am just trying to motivate you. Oh, sweet, it's a weapon I haven't used yet. I am trying to motivate you. I'm trying to make you the best you can be. No excuses. You're being a little bitch, so on and so forth. Just to give you a little bit of context of that, when in my last couple years, when the pain for the military started tearing my body apart, muscle tears and rips, multiple concussions, I was told on more than one occasion to just suck it up. Stop lying. Stop playing it up. You're being useless, so on and so forth. And I can tell you right now, that did not exactly make me keen to continue my service.
You pay your money, you take your chances.
I wanted to be in the military, but it's like the military didn't want me there. And having talked with a couple of my buddies who got out before me, got out after me and such, they seem to have the same experience. And then you have the problem of... I just realized I never finished my thought. So when the military started to physically break me down, and I needed to go to the hospital multiple times, not to mention when I needed to go see a psychiatrist or a therapist multiple times, because the military is not for the faint of heart, nor for the weak-willed. And by that I mean you need to have like a very strong mental to survive day to day in the military. But when it started weighing on me, my units, my superiors would say, no, you cannot go, we have training. Or they would say, you don't need that, you need to buckle down and stop complaining. Of course, at that point, that's when I started to realize, oh, they can't stop me physically from going to get the help I need. A lot of times I would just go and they couldn't stop me. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, Talan, doesn't that kind of break the chain of command? Doesn't that mean, oh, you had no faith in your leadership, so on and so forth? Yes, I had zero faith in my leadership. There are multiple times where I was looked over for promotion because because I took leave, or because I was physically not keeping up with the PT test. And that's not to mean that I was gaining a lot of weight. It was meaning like I physically could not do the PT test. People don't care. Even if you have a medical exemption, a profile is what we would call it, they do not care. Get it done or shift. You are looked over for promotions. Sometimes they deny your leave, even though legally they can't do that. But if you can think about it, they can probably do it with zero repercussions. You have leaders telling you to, and here is a, let's say, trigger warning for people who might get triggered by this. You have leaders telling you, well, maybe you're better off dead. Maybe you're better off leaving. Or you have leaders insulting your family. You have leaders insulting you constantly. And I do not care what position of power you may have over me. There's no need to just be a prick, let's be honest here. If you are, you probably have more problems in your life than I have in mine. But that's neither here nor there.
That's Dr. Moline. Joined the physics team last year. Weird.
Let me just try to get around you guys. Thank you. Pardon me. Excuse me. Alrighty then. I gotta say, just kind of like to lighten up the atmosphere a little bit. I don't know what it is, but Black Ops definitely got me back into Call of Duty. Before I got Black Ops a few weeks ago when it came out, I can confidently say I have not played an FPS, like a real FPS, let's say. I played like third-person shooters, but I haven't played a Call of Duty game, let's go with that, in well over a decade, probably close to like 14, 15 years at this point, before Black Ops 6. But this, I don't know what it is. I am just happy with this. I can lose a lot of time just playing this. But where was I? Yeah, so the leadership ruined a lot of things for me. Very toxic leadership. You see it in every unit, every base. There's toxic leadership. People who don't care about you as an individual. They only care about looking good in front of their superiors. They will talk down to you. They will belittle you in private, but in well, sometimes even in public. But in front of their superiors, they will pretend everything is a-okay. What I'm saying is, if you do join the military, keep in mind, not everybody has your best interests at heart. And so I can confidently say, sometimes you don't have your best interests at heart. After multiple months in training, after gaslighting yourself into thinking you are doing what's best for you, you may think, oh, I need to buckle up. I need to get better. I need to be better. I need to do better. And I can tell you right now, don't think that. You deserve better than to be yelled at by somebody who doesn't deserve your respect. If you can amicably work with them during duty hours or during specific operations, do that. But after that, don't deal with them. Don't accept any of their shit. You have more rights than you may think. I know I started the beginning of the video with, you know, oh, in the military you have very little rights. You have more than you think. It's just the military is very slow in telling you your rights. You are left to figure out so much by yourself. Your leadership will do the bare absolute minimum to train you, and then they will say it's your fault for not keeping up. It's your fault for not understanding. It's your fault for making them look bad. And I drank the Kool-Aid at one point. I thought, I'm the problem. I need to buckle down. I need to get things done. And it's about this time where I started experiencing depression. A lot of depression. I was very sad, upset. I mentioned earlier, I lost some family members while I was in the military. And I wasn't there when they passed away. Because the military, one way or another, kept me from getting to them until all was said and done. A lot of time in the military, if you need to take leave, you know, taking days off, you either use what you've earned or you need to beg for emergency leave. And I can tell you right now, the Army, they do not feel inclined to give you emergency leave unless they absolutely have to. And that's just awful. It's awful to say, it's awful to think, but it's true. But I experienced depression, and it took me a while to realize I was depressed. I became angry or withdrawn. I was prone to mood swings. But I did my best. I buried myself in my work constantly. And looking back now, or all the times I've looked back since then, that was wrong of me to do. throw myself in my work and try to ignore my issue. Because you can ignore an issue as much as you want, but it will stick around no matter what, especially depression. And sad to say, for at least a brief time, I became a toxic leader. I cared about my soldiers. I really did. I wanted the best for them. I did what I could. I fought for them to have their days off, have their weekends. I motivated them. I was always there for them. But I became a toxic leader in that I would snap or yell at people for things that were out of their control, things that were out of my control. Do I condone this behavior now? No. If I could take it back, I really would. That's not to say I didn't apologize afterwards, but there's only so much sorry you can do. I regret it. I really do. Now, some of those soldiers weren't the best people or best soldiers, but at the end of the day, I could have been a better person. But I became a toxic leader for several months until I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, Talan, what are you doing? You hate your job. You hate your life. You're missing your family. You missed so many things. I missed so many birthdays. I missed multiple Christmases. It was awful. I hated everything, hated everyone. I hated myself more than anything. I hated myself. I hated what I was doing. Why am I in the military? I could have done anything else in my life. I could have gone to college. I had scholarship. But I wanted to do military because I wanted to make people proud of me. And I can tell you right now, that is going to be the motivator for about a third of the people you meet in the military. If you ask them why they joined the military, 1 out of 3 times they're going to say they did it to make people proud of them, their family, their friends, their significant other. And it's good motivation to have, but I think the best motivation is doing it for yourself. And after a while, I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it, I guess you could say I was doing the military out of spite. I was trying to prove everybody wrong. No, I can do this. No, I am a good soldier. But at the end of the day, I hated it. I hated myself. So I went to the psychiatrist, the therapist, the chaplain, which is the spiritual leader within your unit. I went to all of them multiple times, constantly. I was prescribed medication, which I can tell you right now, it took me months into the process to be like, yeah, I'll take medication. Because at the time, I hated the idea of taking medication in the slightest. Any medication in the slightest, I hated it. I did not want to be seen as weak. I did not want to be seen as a troublemaker or whatever. I didn't want to become reliant on medication. Pick whichever excuse you think fits. I didn't want to do it. But after a while, I realized, hey, this is actually helping me. The chaplain wants to help me. The psychiatrist and therapist want to help me. It was great.
What can I say?
Now, keep in mind, this was about 2 years before I physically got out of the military. So I'm still deep into my contract. I had a lot of obligations at the unit. At this time, I was a sergeant. I was an E5. And I was actually looking at becoming a staff sergeant sooner rather than later. Of course, at that point, you have to go to classes to do that. That becomes your job, is to go to these classes, but I won't get into that. I feel like I've already waffled on quite a lot in the last 45 minutes. I think the military has the potential to bring out the best and the worst in all of us. If you want to join the military, please be aware that it's going to suck. Every job has its downsides. The military is a good chunk of downside. If you think you can handle it, if you want to do it, by all means do it. It's not for everybody. It wasn't necessarily for me, at least not after a certain amount of time, but I still did it, and I'm kind of glad I did. I grew as a person, and I understood myself better. Which is weird to say after, about 5 minutes ago, I said, yeah, I was hella depressed. I was depressed. I was upset, and bit of a trigger warning, I was in some very dark places. The only thing that kept me out of those dark places was my own cowardice and my family. My family was the biggest support I could have had during that time. Normally you would say, oh, your coworkers were your biggest support, right? No, my coworkers were the opposite of support. A lot of them were in the same boat, depressed, trying to get out of the military, or they hated me, they hated everybody else around them, and were making everybody else's problem. Once I realized that this depression is slowly killing me, I very quickly started to get into the process of getting out of the military. It's both hard and simple, because it's a lot of paperwork. It's a long process, months at a time. Your unit will see it as you quitting on them, and you will be ridiculed, if not by people you work with, then by your superiors, most certainly. The army itself will try and keep you in, offer you good contracts, good quote-unquote contracts, mediocre bonuses. I can tell you right now, no amount of money was worth me going on another 3 years in the military. I don't know where I would have been if I was still in the military right now, but I can tell you right now, I would not have been happy. And then after a very long process that lasted roughly a year, give or take, I got out. I was sent home. My contract was ended. I was medically discharged. So it's probably the best way to get discharged is medically, to be honest. Was it worth it, though? No. I want to say all around, if I could go back and do it again, I would most certainly not join the military. I would do anything else, join college, get a different career, a different job opportunity. At least that's what I would tell myself. At the end of the day, I can look back on the 7 years I was in with a mixture of pride in myself for doing it, getting through 7 years in the military, traveling the world, when before I never left the state I lived in, and a mix of disappointment in myself that I couldn't stick it out. Thinking back on this now, let's call this the Army retrospective. It makes me sad at myself that I couldn't stick it out. I couldn't retire after 20 years, but I'm happy I got out. I really am. I missed my family. You don't get back what you miss in the military, I promise you. You see people you haven't seen in... oh, let me reorganize my thought here. You're away for years from your family. Sometimes even if you're married, you're away for years. Sometimes you bring your family with you. Some families don't want to travel the world, so you're just separated. It's awful. I was never married, but I miss my family, my brother, my sister, my parents. I missed them. And I'm never going to get that time back that I missed. 2 weeks out of the year for visitation or leave or what have you, it's not enough. It's never enough to get the time back. And not to bring this already mostly depressing video down even more, a few months after I got out of the military, I lost my brother. And the last conversation I had with him, I can't even remember. mainly because the time between conversations with him and the fact that I suffered a lot of head injuries in the military. Um, I'm never gonna get that back. I miss my brother more than anything. I miss my grandfather, who I lost in the military. Miss my grandma, I lost in the military as well. I'm gonna say right now, and this will probably be my definitive answer on this as we go ahead and exfil, because I believe we're approaching the 1 hour
Be
mark.
advised, exfil windows
Never mind,
closed.
he doesn't want me to exfil. I guess I'll keep waffling on here. Don't join the military for others unless you absolutely think you must. Do it for yourself. Do it to put yourself through college. Do it because you want to serve your country. Do it because you absolutely love the idea of working with bombs, working with other people, traveling the world. Do it for that, please. That's the only real fact advice I can give you. Because you will not be happy for a good chunky military career. I can guarantee it. But you'll be even more unhappy if you do it for the wrong reasons. I did it. I joined the military for the wrong reason. I can accept that. But I feel like I stayed in for the right reason. I wanted to better myself. I wanted to be physically better. I wanted to be mentally better. Did I go about it the wrong way? Most certainly. What do I wish to change things? Fuck yes. But at the end of the day, it's happened, and I can do, all anybody can do in a scenario like this, is to learn from the experience and hopefully grow from it. I like to think I grew from this. I learned a lot of things about myself. For the longest time before I was in the military, I thought I was straight. But when you're in the military, you very quickly find out you find out two things. Everybody's a goddamn nerd in the military, and everybody has a little bit of gay in them. But I realized while I was in the military, very least, point blank period, I was at the very least bi. I met a lot of good people, either through dating or just hanging out with them. I didn't hate all my coworkers. I will say that there were some that I genuinely enjoyed being around. They were really cool guys and girls. But for the most part, people ruin things. Let's just keep it at that. And now, after time out of the military, I have realized that I am, in fact, most closely identify with pansexual. Of course, this made things a bit difficult. My parents had to lock up the kitchen, so I'm no longer in there. I'm no longer allowed in there. You know, just easy, low-hanging fruit joke there. But in all seriousness, I don't think I would have figured that out about myself if I was out of the military. Let's just say I speed ran the process. So you're going to discover a lot about yourself in the military. Will you discover sexuality? Maybe, maybe not. Will you discover that you hate the military or you love it? Probably. But at the end of the day, the absolute best thing you can do is join the military if you are absolutely sure it's something you want to do. Don't guess it. Don't last minute and haw over it. Think about it. You have nothing but time for the most part. Some people may not have time to think. They may have to join the military. But if you get to the point where a court tells you you have to join the military, we are not in the same scenario, so I don't have any input for that. Wow. Never thought I could spend an hour or anywhere close to that amount of time just speaking on the military, or at least on my personal experience. Even then, I feel like I did nothing but complain the entire time. I tried to keep it in check, but I can already tell a lot of it like slipped through.
Yeah.
So
See how it goes.
I'm just gonna do it. I can already tell a bit of it slipped through, so I do apologize for the large amount of complaining. Because I'm sure a lot of you didn't click on this video to hear a 27-year-old complain, "Oh, woe is me. My life was ruined by the military." I can say my life was physically ruined by the military. Let's go like that. I get constant back aches, migraines, and I can't go for runs anymore without wishing to rip my feet off and place them like little dino legs. But that's neither here nor there. I just hope I got across my feeling on this. Adequately enough. Maybe in the future I should like prepare some writing points for these kind of videos. That might do me some good. But overall, I think this makes me feel better. At the end of the day, being able to talk to somebody is better than not. I can tell you right now, if you're in the military, if you feel depressed, upset, you have so many free resources that they let you, well, they say you can use them, but actually using them is a bit of a different story. I would definitely attempt to use them if you can. But talk with people, your friends, your coworkers, your family. Please don't forget your family, because they miss you. Some may say they don't miss you. Your family, you will know if they truly miss you or not. They probably miss you just as much as you miss them, if not more so. But it's never too late to get the help you need, especially in the military. I can tell you right now, military individuals, military men, women, whoever you are, we don't have, well, I say we, but I'm no longer part of the military. I'm gonna keep using we for ease of access here. We don't have it easy. Whether it's because of the high expectations set on you, whether it's because you yourself are being hard on you, you don't have it easy. People need to see that. Sometimes civilians, people outside the military, they don't see that. They really don't. All they see is the commercials. All they see is what the military wants them to see. They don't see the individual. But at the end of the day, all you can be is an individual. You are you. You are not the military. And sometimes it's hard to realize that.
How about a little taste of darkness?
After talking about this, I do feel better. And I do want to thank everybody who's stuck around this long. Just to hear me complain, just to hear me get all these thoughts off my chest. I think for this video, I'm gonna leave it mostly unedited, mostly for myself. Not out of laziness. I can at the very least promise you that, but because it's been so long, you are expected to keep your thoughts to yourself a lot of the time in the military. Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to sympathize. Nobody wants to be dragged down by your thoughts. And it's rough. The military is my first experience with a toxic work culture. It most certainly won't be my last, but it's probably the most toxic work culture I have ever heard of. Obviously, other people's experiences may vary. I didn't put a weapon mod on this thing. There I am. I get so into my thoughts, so into my complaining and ranting that I forget things. And again, the concussions don't help. For anybody who might be curious about that, a lot of times when you're physically working out or in physical training, or sometimes even just being careless, a couple of my concussions were just from being careless. you hit your head a lot. And I can tell you right now, it's a very unpleasant experience. There's a couple times where I was very scared. Yeah, speaking of, okay, while we wait for the next exfil, I have a bit of a story that kind of highlights how your superiors in the military don't care for you as an individual. So, back when COVID was a major thing, we were reworking our lives to work around COVID. I believe this was I was stationed in Germany at the time, and I want to say this was 2020, towards the tail end of 2020. I got very, very sick. So much so they had to bring me to a little quarantine camp that they had set up for COVID cases. I was so sick I could barely move. My throat was raw. I was beyond sick. Uh, the best way I can describe it is thank God I drank water. Otherwise, I had thoughts that I would not be around the next day. Let's say that. But I was so sick, I could not eat. My leadership, for the most part, was out at the field on a mission, so they were not physically at camp. They were not there. But the medical personnel there were not checking up on us. I was not fed for about 3-4 days because I physically could not move. I was not being checked up on either by people who stayed back from the field or from the medical personnel, and I felt awful. I was messaging one of my friends about this, and I guess they posted it on Facebook, because the next thing I know, I was being messaged by a first sergeant. For those of you who don't know, that's like the second highest or third highest, depending on your point of view, rank for enlisted. I was being messaged by a first sergeant I didn't know. He was asking me questions about, hey, what's happening? What's going on? And I told him, and I don't know if he made any calls. I don't know who he talked to, but all of a sudden the medical personnel over like the next week, 2 weeks I was there, was checking on me constantly, bringing me food, water, medicine and such. So, I mean, hell, he lit a fire under their asses, I guess, but I didn't expect it. But, so I was not checked on by my units. They did not care. It just didn't happen. After this event, I guess the word got passed around what happened. When my sergeant came to grab me from the quarantine area, he looked me in the eye and said, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" I was gaslit into thinking it was my fault I was not eating. It was my fault I got sick. It was my fault nobody checked on me. And I believed it. For a long time, I believed it. I felt awful. I felt shitty. I believed I was the one at fault. This all goes to say your leadership does not care about you the way they should, for the most part. Blanket statement here, your leadership might be that rare unicorn that actually cares. Mine did not. A lot of my leaderships did not. I was just another number on the page for them. At the end of the day, I am happy I joined the military. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the world. I became the person I am today. But if I could take it back, I would. In a heartbeat, I would most certainly take it back. I think that's the longest I've ever talked on this issue before. it wasn't even really much of an issue talked about. I was just bitching, let's be honest. But for those of you who stuck around, I appreciate you. It makes me feel good to talk about everything. And hopefully in the future talent talks, these would be a bit more formatted. I can't guarantee anything, but I will do my best. But in any case, everybody, looks like the Black Ops servers are taking a bit longer to fire up the old hamster wheel. So I want to thank you all so much for listening, watching, however you got about this. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. And if you have any ideas on topics for the future, please let me know. And seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening. It's so hard to find any listeners in general. And even if I have to go to YouTube for this, I don't care. It's made me feel better at the end of the day. So thank you everybody so much for listening to my very croaky coffee voice. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. And I will see you later. Goodbye, everybody.